unfortunately, this person didn't get off the road quite far enough. They got a parking ticket. This is the parking lot. This is all of the parking on the North End Glendenning Road. It's a 5-vehicle lot. Not much for 100,000. Instead of 100,000 people, and the Times tell us 100,000 people go through this portal in a year. A little bit further back, there's one of the no parking on the left-hand side there, the no parking zone. You see this a lot still. Just not enough parking, and people just parking where they used to park. This is looking back down south toward Mountback Crossroad. There's the first parking sign on the right. There's 16 of them down the street, which to me kind of just destroys the ambience of the street, but that's just my opinion. To take a look at the little bit of the problem was the destruction of the side road. You can see a little bit, but it's not a significant issue. So just to walk around some of the other entrances of the park. This is on Harvest Lane. One of the things about the Glendenning Road is the beautiful flat approach that appeals to a lot of people. So one of the comments is, well, people should just go elsewhere, right? And so this is Harvest Lane. As it starts with some steps, then it goes up quite a steep ramp up toward the park. And then at the other end, there's another set of steps. So it's not exactly the most user-friendly approach to the park for people who have the mobility and seniors and young people. And so this is kind of this is kind of what people are faced with if they can't use Glendenning. This is the residential area around Harvest Lane. There's not much parking there either. There's a little 4-spot slot just off to the left, but I've been there 3 or 4 times and it's usually full. This is the entranceway to Cedar Hill. Again, right on Cedar Hill Road, which I suppose most people are on there, and people go by very quickly. You can see the first car. If you walk around that, you're almost on top of the road, and people just bomb down that street. I've been there many times myself, and it's always a little bit scary. They've actually got some fencing up now. People are creeping into the park to get off the road, so there's been more and more roadside damage in that area. This is people actually on the other side of the fire road that are starting to park down Cedar Hill, and it's starting to get a little bit of damage. And people in that red car, when they get out of their car, they're going to be standing on top of Cedar Hill Road, which is a little bit of a scary thing for me. This is the Churchill Road entrance. This will boggle my mind a little bit. This is on a Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock, and the parking lot is jammed already at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday. So we have people waiting to park at 5 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. The parking lot is just jammed. You're going to send more people to Churchill Drive. There's another car that's the 2 cars were behind each other. People just waiting for a car to leave so they can park. And parking is just a problem all over the park. This is down in the beach parking lot. As again, it's large, lovely, and awfully lonely. This was about probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There were 6 cars in a huge parking lot. And if you're a beach visitor, it's great. If you're a forest visitor, it's lousy. So anyways. Lots of pavement. I've actually hoped to talk to the Parks and Trail Advisory Committee about a huge footprint of this parking lot, and perhaps sometime in the future we can do a little bit of consideration of reducing the footprint. This is an awful footprint in this park. So this is another trail. This is a brand new trail off of Blenkinsop Valley. This goes straight up. You can't see it in the picture, but you can see how rough and rocky, and it's a tough. Most people don't use this trail. It's just too tough for people, especially people that like the Glendenning area. This is just not an option. This is another picture of the new trail, and it's just I don't know. I'd have trouble getting up there, I think. Peter, what about you? Do you think you'd have trouble with that?
I don't go up there anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't go up there anymore, because this is Peter. With his hiking aids, he needs a flat piece of property to get in, and he just doesn't have a choice to go anywhere else. And this is the kind of people who like this entranceway. A little bit the old and the young and the tall and the short and the dogs and the kids and everything like that. So this is a wide variety of people. And the one thing that really amazes me is the connection that people have with this entranceway. This is a very popular, there's a lot of people been coming here for a lot of years, and they just love this entranceway, and just having the accessibility taken away from them it's just been a very tough issue. And this is what it's all about. That's just a gorgeous fall day, and really illustrates everything that people love about Glendinning Park entrance. So we come to the review recommendation. We have two-part recommendation for you tonight, is or for you to consider. There's kind of a short-term recommendation and a longer-term recommendation. And the shorter-term recommendation is just removing the current ban on the parking along Glendinning Avenue until the district-wide review of the safety of narrow residential roads can be conducted. And I'm going to speak to that a little bit more. The second was to undertake an administrative process to review parking-related issues. And I hope Councillor Plant is going to talk to that in a few minutes. So I'm going to kind of leave the second one and go back and talk about the first one a little bit. On the issue with respect to the Glendinning Road has primarily been around safety. The other issues, the damage in that area, in my opinion, is it's recognizable, but it's rather immaterial. And the issue of safety, I think that most reasonable people in down there taking a look at that would say that it's not a big issue. It's just not a big issue there. But whoever went to the fire department and whispered in the ear, actually, it was a smart idea. It's brought us to the situation that we are now. And there's three things that happened by the fire department getting in. Is first of all, they managed to get the ban imposed. And it also was given political cover, because when I go to talk to anybody about why the ban has been imposed, they say, the fire chief said, that they needed it, and that's it. And the third thing, it was just kind of box counsel, I think, in my opinion, is box counsel into, what are you going to do, right? Overriding the fire chief is kind of a tough situation. So it's a very, very difficult situation to be in with respect to that issue. So it was pretty smart. But I think my problem with it is, am I finished already?
It's been 10 minutes, but can you wrap up your comments?
Yeah, okay. If I could, it's just, oh, I lost my train of thought now. I'm sorry, it's been a long couple of months, and I'm just...
You were talking about the fire chief and council being boxed in and so forth.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
You were talking about council being boxed in, you were talking about fire chief making a decision.
That's where you were. It's just... The arbitrariness and the lack of justification is I don't think it does the district any good at all, perception-wise, and I think that I have asked the Planning and the Transportation Committee, and I just refer to take a look at it. This is, if it's an issue for Glendinning, the narrowness of the road and the safety, if it's an issue for Glendinning, then it's a bigger issue. It's an issue across Sandwich. Because we've taken a look at other roads in our neighborhood that are more problematic than the Glendinning Road is. And we believe then that it is an issue that maybe deserves a bigger look. And that if that's going to happen, then we believe that we could lift the ban on Glendinning temporarily until a bigger review can be conducted, so that everybody can have standards, everybody can see what the rules are, that it's not an ad hoc decision. And then if it, after all of that is done, and it would perceive that Glendenning falls within the criteria of narrowness and safety, then I think we could all live with that decision. But right now, a lot of us are finding it a little bit tough to swallow the way it is right now. So that'll end it on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Post. Are there any questions from councillors? Thank you for your presentation. Councillor Plant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move a motion that asks staff to provide a report to a future council meeting asking for options for parking at Mount Doug Park with an emphasis on looking for solutions to parking issues on Glendenning Road and Cedar Hill Road, and I'll speak to it if someone seconds it.
Second.
Go ahead, Councillor Plant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight is not really a night for huge debate on Glendenning because this is simply a delegation, and I thank Mr. Poggi for the work he does both on the pulling weeds in Mount Doug, invasive species, excuse me, as well as bringing this to the attention of council. So tonight is not a decision night, I think, where we should rescind a ban or anything like that. I think tonight is a night where we can ask our staff for more information. And so this motion is designed to do that. It's designed not to open up a huge can of worms tonight for council. I think that comes when this report comes back. And I would hope that this report does take into account feedback from residents as well as opportunities to perhaps talk to Mr. Poggi further. So at that, I'll just leave it short, sweet, asking council to not ignore this issue, but ask staff to come back and provide us a report on what is a possible option. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm certainly not opposed to the direction suggested by Councillor Plant. I actually think it's a good idea. I'm just wondering if procedurally it's the best way to move forward. This item was not advertised on a council agenda, so people who have an interest, and I've had quite a few emails, phone calls from people who are interested in both sides of the story. It would be a very slight delay, but perhaps a better procedural method might be to bring a report to council at the next council meeting, and then that would be advertised as on the council agenda or committee of the whole, and we could get a lot more public input prior to sending staff away to do a report as to the pros and cons. So that would be my own preference. It would give a delay of about 2 weeks, but I think it might give us a better opportunity to follow our policy of public consultation and get more public input to director staff prior to sending them off to do a report.
Thank you, Councillor Dermott. Councillor Haynes.
Is that a question, Councillor Dermott?
Well, I'm indicating that procedurally I think that might be more appropriate, and if you have a response, I'd be happy to hear it.
Maybe I'll just weigh in. How many people are here in the audience for this item? Show of hands. I think we have, just based on that, I think we have a good attendance as we would have at a regular council meeting, and maybe in this case we could simply move forward at this point. I think it's a very good suggestion, and I think it's normally how we follow this protocol. It's not normal that we do put motions forward at this time, but given the interest in the issue, I think it may well serve our public to do so.
Mr. Mayor, if I could follow up.
Please.
We do apparently have a lot of people in the audience, and I really appreciate them coming out, but we don't know if they're broadly canvassing the issue or people who have come out with a particular group. I think if we're going to follow appropriate allow public input in this kind of item, that we advertise the item as being on the agenda. That's just my view.
Okay, my feeling is I think we're going to get to the same end. If we're going to be asking for a staff report and that's going to be on the agenda and that will be advertised and the public can come in, my sense is that we're going to end up in the same place. But I'd like to hear from other members of council. Councillor Haynes.
First of all, I'd like to talk to the parking issue. And in actual fact, we're in a moment of success because the park is very popular. and it's being visited by, as we see, a wide range of people. And in that park, we have a dedicated group who've spent years pulling together to help remove invasives. And we have a dedicated group interested in the parking. And as it's now become an issue because of the work of the people around the parking, this is a success. It's bringing an issue to council, to staff, to have another second look at. When I walked around the park, and it's a newer park for me to explore, but there is some opportunities on Winchester. There's access off of Parkside, which Dave, you didn't mention that one on the side there. There's quite a nice access on the side. But there's a hidden access on Woodcrest, which right now is blocked off by a resident. So I think the idea from Councillor Park for a review that is being provoked by the interest of the community in how to appropriately access and use the park is a statement of success. For sure, in the summer we had fire risks, and I would err on the side of caution for not losing the park through a fire. I think our protective services did the right thing. We need to protect the integrity of the street, the beauty of Glendenning. How is that best done? What is the balance? I am not quite clear on process. I would think that if staff came back with a report, I don't know if it could be done in 2 weeks, Councillor Dunn, and then there was a more fulsome discussion of the opportunities around the park with people that are concerned about the use of the park as walkers, etc. This would be a good thing to do. And I'm in support of going to the report, but I need some guidance from staff here on the appropriate process, because at the end of the day we don't want this to be challenged by process. At the end of the day, our public participation is to get us to a point of success, and I think we've started that journey this evening.
Mr. Mayor, through to the Councillor Haynes, I think the process that's been outlined either way is appropriate. It's really up to Council. If the motion goes through from Councillor Plant, then we would come back with a report, and that would be on the agenda. If in the alternative, Council wishes to postpone this and have a report on the agenda with public comment on, that's fine as well. I don't have a difficulty with either process, whichever one Council chooses to move forward with.
So, through the Mayor to staff, thank you for that. So given that, and given the number of people who've taken time out of their evening to come here this evening, I think moving ahead and asking for the report is appropriate, and I support the motion as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the clarification from our CAO and the questions from my fellow councillors. My question was really, we're talking about a report or a report, and so I was trying to get my head around, well, what would the difference be if we had a report that we'd ask staff to bring to us versus a report that presumably Councillor Plant would bring to council for discussion. I guess the other option is we could refer Mr. Pogge's report to a future committee of the whole meeting, or we could have had Mr. Pogge go to Parks, Trails and Rec Committee and then have that come here. So procedurally, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get in the door. What I'm just trying to understand, and I think this is what the Mayor alluded to, is what comes next. We obviously, before we charge off in any direction, want to give the public an opportunity to weigh in. If there's a problem here, what are the problems and what are the options to fix it? So I see no real issue in why we wouldn't have staff prepare some information for us that would, one, what's the supporting rationale behind the ban in the first place that precipitated tonight's conversation, and then the broader implications of parking for access to Mount Bennett Park. So whether or not that can be done in 2 weeks may be ambitious, but I see no harm in having an informed conversation where the public would have an opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess for me, when people ask me about delegations, I refer them to the process that at the delegation process, there's no real decision. We receive the delegation, and then council or any council member can bring it to another arena so that we can have it. My concern is I told a number of people that they would be able to be heard, but it wouldn't be at this place. which is the delegation place. I understand about asking our staff for a report, but our staff have a paper from one individual and the people that worked with him on it. But he hasn't, there's no kind of paper from the Friends of Mount Doug or the neighborhood around Glendenning. I'm just very concerned that we keep changing this delegation process. And people read what delegation is on our website, and now we're making a different process. So if we're now going to say if we're going to change the delegation, and actual motions can happen here, then we need to make that clarified so that people understand that a motion can happen at the delegation process, because that's what's happened. We passed, or the motion on the floor is for staff to bring back a report, and that's at the delegation process. So whatever, I understand what the CEO is saying, then we need to clarify it, because there's a real miscommunication up there what delegations are. So.
Okay, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of councillors that want to speak and add to this issue, and I'm interested in hearing from everybody, but let me just say that we have this council procedures bylaw, and it was something that we rolled out with this new council. We all deliberated on it, and essentially it was a pilot. It was something that we had set up to try, and whether it's supporting the needs of our public or not, we're finding out as we go through the process. When I think about the process itself and how we got to this point, I know that this change had come through the Administrative Traffic Committee, but I don't think it had come through the Parks, Trails, and Rec Committee. And so I think we have a crisscross of process already. I think it's very important that the council listen to the public and act, and not necessarily make instant judgments or have a knee-jerk reaction. It's very important for us that as we do all of our business, that we do it in a way that provides sound justification to the public for all of our decision-making, and that we provide early notification and provide for early input. And I think in this case we have an issue where something has changed and the public has come out in mass, and they would like it addressed as soon as possible. How we're going to address that, we don't know yet. We need to get a report back, but I feel that getting the report at this stage and then calling the second council meeting and then having anyone and everyone come and speak to the recommendation that may come in the report will enlighten us quite a bit more than we are now. But my personal preference is not to let the process in place that has been put in place in an experimental fashion to hold up this issue. I think it would be not serving the public well. So, if the council is in favor, I can call the question on the motion, or we can hear from 6 more speakers. To keep going? Okay. Next up on the list is Councillor Sanders.
Yes, I just want to echo the same. We put the process in place, and that we advertise what a delegation is, and a delegation is a presentation to council, and there's no process past that. You know, there's no motions, there's no action we take, because we're in a position where we as council don't have a report from staff or anything to base our decision on. So rather than fly by the seat of your pants, if you want to say, I prefer us to treat delegations as they are. They come have a presentation. Obviously, there is the conversation has merit. There's that opportunity to go to staff and get us the report and get it onto a future council meeting to discuss. So for this evening, I want to look and proceed with the concept that there has been a motion made, and if we want to get a report back on this issue, then we can do it. And that fulfills our public participation guidelines, where the general public will see it advertised as an item they can speak to. So I hope in the future that's how we will treat delegations, so that the general public is well aware of what's going to happen in this chamber, rather than being missed out.
Thank you. Councillor Woodward.
Thank you very much. Things really do get complicated, and the procedure that we've had for this is a half hour for public input, for the public to come and share any concerns that they would have for the municipality. And it was never meant to be a time where council would get engaged and have a debate. And even though I'm all for seeing a motion coming forward, think if we start wondering too much, I think we're gonna run into trouble with the process that we have done. I believe those of you that have come out to speak to us tonight on the issue, you've got a full half hour, and I'd encourage you to not go over on your time. But I believe if there is a concern that is brought forward, I believe you will see it come to council in the near future as an item on the agenda. And I believe sometimes you just have to trust council for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Derman, for second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it just concerns me, as Councillor Brown and others, and I guess I said, of changing the rules on the fly. Like Councillor Brownoff, I spoke to several people, I replied to them, and said, tonight is only a time when information will be presented to council. There will be no decisions made and so forth. Council will listen to concerns, and then at a future meeting it will be advertised, and if you have concerns for or against a particular issue, then you will be notified. I understand that it's quite a concern to the public, and I think we need to move as quickly as possible, but I don't think it's appropriate to change the way we operate on the fly without notification to the public or anything of that nature. That's an unfortunate precedent. I'm not going to support this motion simply for that reason. I would like to see us go through the procedures we have established, and if we're going to change them, let the public know they've been changed. We don't have anybody from Friends of Mount Doug here. They are the most important of that organization, I think, concerned with the park, and have been well established for a very long time. I don't know if this motion passed, if staff is going to contact the Friends of Mount Doug or whatever it might be. It's a mismatch unless we go through the proper procedures that we have established. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Derman. Councillor Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm left with the dilemma of when does decision become a decision? I know 100% we're not going to make a decision, in the capital D decision, in my idea of a decision here tonight, but asking staff to bring a report is pretty nebulous. If I were the administrator, I'd be wondering, does council just simply want a litany of what happened and why? Does council want me to investigate all of the access points to Mount Doug Park with a parking survey and the amount of parking that occurs over weeks and days? Exactly what is requested in this report, I think, hinges on my decision whether this is actually a decision council is making. If Councillor Plant had simply said he wanted a report from staff giving a history of what brought about the change of parking on Glendenning, I would say that's not a decision. If Councillor Plant intends with his motion to trigger a study of some kind, which would take resources and some effort and engaging input from a variety of people, I suggest in my mind that is a decision. I don't know if others share my definition of where we should be on this, and I guess I would ask Mr. Mayor through you, Councillor Plant, what would be your expectation of a report from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Bryce. To be really blunt, after all the feedback we got, I asked our CAO what would be the best way to perhaps proceed. And he suggested asking him to create a report with some options. So I did not get into any great depth as to what that would look like. For me, I'm not looking for this to be exhaustive. I would expect that there would be some form of a conversation with the major stakeholders that have identified themselves, such as Mr. Poggi, such as Friends of Mount Doug Park, and I would also say the two community associations that straddle the Mount Doug Park, and if not, even the Cordova Bay, which would be the third community association. So am I expecting an extensive report? No. I was told by our CAO that this would not be a huge endeavor and that they could do this. So I was just looking, as I started out by saying at the beginning, for a quick way for us to move to the next time, moving forward, to then debate it at a greater length.
Thank you for that. I would, through you, Mr. Mayor, since the inspiration came from staff, I would ask through you whether staff wish to comment on the nature of the report that would come back that would be triggered by this motion if it's successful tonight.
Well, I think maybe I can answer that question because, you know, while we're here debating process and procedure, I think it's one thing to have a delegation come forward with a specific recommendation and then to pose it to us and us to make a motion and make a decision. What we're doing here is we're really just asking for information. Something has come to our attention and it's happened to come through this delegation process. And Councillor Plant has spoken with the administrator, has received some advice, and it's come forward this way. I think, as I said earlier, to answer your question, this is kind of where it falls to my role. It's my responsibility after council passes a motion to then work with the administrator to help flesh that out and define that, and then to share that with council ahead of the meeting, and then put that to the meeting, and then look to the public input, and then bring it back again for a decision. So I think I'm quite happy to work with the administrator and listening to the public, having visited the site, and looking for more input to tailor that so that it becomes something that we can then take a next step with. It's not to be, I think, the final phase, because I think it is a big issue, as Mr. Poggi has raised, but I'd be quite happy to help define that somewhat, if that satisfies you.
Well, a list of people who were going to be consulted was mentioned by Councillor Plant. I certainly think the residents of Glendenning Road would fall definitely in that category. So, you know, we could all have our impression of what would be